are you? Where were you? And where are you going?
My name is Genessee Puntigam. I'm a professional women's footballer. I was a normal American teenager living in my American bubble, and I'm going onwards and upwards into the end stages of my career and into the unknown.
You spoke on this. So this zone of relegation is another kind of very interesting topic that is very specific to Europe and the European game. So how do you feel like the team is approaching this end of the season to kind of not panic, but also to really be serious and kick into gear to make sure that you're safe for the end of the season?
I think within the team, we've put a lot of emphasis in the last couple weeks on like team cohesion and making sure we're on the same page and having a positive attitude as opposed to like getting kind of dug into a hole of negative thinking. And so we have done a lot of team building exercises and have been saying within ourselves, like, you know, we can do this, like, look at all the talent we have on our team. And we hear that from the outside as well, that people who hear that we're in relegation, they're saying like, oh, wow, I'm surprised, because if you look at your team roster, it's like national team player, like internationals. Like we have a very, very strong team talent wise and on paper. So I think it's just a matter of reaching within ourselves and making sure that we're on the same page, number one, but also translating that onto the field and making sure that we're working together as a unit and not as individuals.
And is this your first time in the relegation zone, kind of fighting?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it's a disaster for clubs when they do go down leagues, and something from America that we don't have experience until coming over here.
Exactly. It's so weird. Like it's such there's so like feel like there's so much pressure. Like there really is a lot of pressure on you to perform, because you don't want to be like the one on the field that makes a mistake that leads to the goal that leads to the loss of points, you know? And so it's a lot of pressure on individuals and as us as a group, because the club has put a lot of effort into the women's section this year, and I think also going forward. And so we don't want to let them down as well. So it's a lot.
How do you feel like, do you recognize in yourself when you're playing with fear and when you're playing more with confidence, like playing to not mess up as in opposed to playing to make things happen? Do you feel like you've kind of witnessed that relationship a little bit more dealing with something like this?
Yeah, definitely. And for me, like a big motto that I use is like trying to have like a championship mentality, making sure that I have that at all times with me. And it's important that I train my mind as well as train my body. So I spend a lot of time doing like mental health work and positive visualization and things that will help me be able to compartmentalize the mistakes I do make on the field, so that I can, you know, move on and continue playing without that fear aspect.
Now, an amazing thing that you mentioned before is that you play alongside your wife. And I can't imagine that there's many stories out there at this level, at this professional level, where that's occurring. So after playing against her a few times, I know in France, how does it feel to share the pitch on the same side this year?
It's amazing. Like she's my best friend, and like not only is there like a little bit of friendly competition between us, but also it's nice to have an outlet where like we can bounce ideas off of each other, or you know, a little bit of what's the word, a little bit of healthy criticism after the game, or I'll ask her like, what did you think about this player, or before the game even we'll go through the video together and I'll be like, okay, I've played against her. And we just give each other little tips and tricks, and it's nice to just have somebody that understands every aspect of your life. And then as well as like my second love is football, and she understands this as well. So it's nice to have her, honestly.
Yeah. Staying on this topic, I mean, kind of bring it into inclusion in sports. It's a topic that's, of course, growing, but not talked about enough. And reading a little bit about your story with Athlete Ally, which is an organization you're an ambassador with, you talk about this idea, and I'll read the quote directly. Every athlete should be able to play and live freely without the heaviness of shame and guilt weighing them down. Life is a tumultuous ride for everyone. For LGBTQI plus athletes, being public about the love of your life shouldn't be a burden, and sports should be for all. So if you wouldn't mind, could you speak a little bit about your journey in finding and expressing yourself both on and off the field, and how this idea kind of came into place?
Mhm. I think when I started to discover my sexuality is probably back in the college level. And I was lucky in that sense that I went to UC Berkeley, which is again a very open, San Francisco was very gay friendly. And it was the first time where I understood what it meant to be gay, and I had other people around me that were gay, and I felt like, okay, this is a safe space for me to, come out to friends and family. So I did come out around that time, 17, 18, but wasn't fully out to the public. And then as I moved to France, I thought to myself, okay, it's not a good time for me to tell people that I'm out. I'm worried it's going to affect my career. I'm worried it's going to affect my playing time. And one small incident happened when I was at my first club, where I had a best friend she was just a platonic friend. There was nothing more. But the president of the club and my head coach were under the impression that we were dating. And from then I got a call from my agent who said, like, you need to cut this off if you're dating her. It's a distraction for the other girls on the team. It's a distraction for the club. Like, we don't want to be associated with this type of behavior, is what they said. And for me, as soon as I heard that, I was just absolutely shocked and confused and disappointed. And immediately my confidence dipped. And any athlete will tell you, if you're playing with no confidence, then you're basically playing with one leg cut off. So that was a really hard pill for me to swallow, thinking to myself, like, I'm never going to be able to come out to these people because this is the reaction. I'm not even doing anything yet. So this was after this happened and I left this kind of toxic environment. I took a year off, I think, a year and a half off from football, and kind of went back home and was with family. And after that, I met my wife. And when I met her, I thought to myself, like, this is who I want to be with. And I don't want to be in a situation where I have to hide myself. I don't want the guilt. I don't want the shame, but I also want to be able to play openly and freely. And so, yeah, after being in Sweden for some time, and then finally ending up back in Germany, my wife and I had said at the time that we want to be at a club that focuses on inclusion, and really puts a spotlight on homosexuality and doesn't swipe it under the rug or pretend like it doesn't exist. So that's kind of how we ended up in Cologne.
We're talking a little bit about the inclusion of LGBTQ plus for women's football from the player side. So has it been mostly inclusive from your experience, or still like in areas like where you've been, maybe sometimes in France, where it felt like even the players weren't abiding or around for that?
Absolutely not. The players in every country and every team and every age level have been fantastic. Like, for us, it's not a thing, because it is so normalized within ourselves that you would be the minority, or you would be the outlier if you were sitting there being like, oh, I don't want a gay person on the team. It just doesn't happen, because it's just normal, as it should be.
Right. So the disconnect really comes from outside. It comes from the clubs. It comes from
it's really
the management. It comes from the fans. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a shame. And I think, speaking about it from the men's side, I think it can be a bit more taboo, which is a very depressing notion, where, like, you mentioned the players are inclusive, and you felt that for the most part. So, from the men's side, it feels like that is a step that needs to be taken, where it's kind of like, it just doesn't feel open. It doesn't feel like it should in that regard. So, what advice do you think you could give to the men's side to, I guess, from players and teammates, to help it make it feel like that more inclusive and more of a safe space?
My advice would be to encourage players who maybe are out or out within the team and just not out to the public to come forward publicly. I know it's scary and it's daunting, and your whole life maybe you think is going to come crashing down, but we need visibility, and we just don't have any visibility. And so when players do come out, or the ones that you see that have trickled here and there, a couple hockey players, a couple football players have come out. And then you need the teammates or the players in the league to come out and support them, and not to write like negative tweets, or I don't know, put them down. We need them to be uplifted so more people feel comfortable coming out and coming forward. So I think it's really up to the teammates around to create the environment and to show the fans that we're not going to tolerate any negativity and any hate. We support our teammates, we support our friends, and it's okay to be gay.
How do you feel like it's helped you to be more open about your process and having that as an outlet to give back and hopefully encourage and help others in similar situations?
I think that for me personally, like my confidence, like I said, is just skyrocketed because I feel that I can be who I am, and that's really so important in life and in sports. And then for kids or young fans to come to the game and say, "Oh, I have a girlfriend, and you made me feel comfortable." Like I told my parents. I've had a couple of people DM me and ask for advice on how to come out, and it's just nice to know that that I am having some sort of impact on young people who maybe are scared or don't know what to do. So it's nice to see the flip side of it.
And then, I mean, your first transition into France from university, how did that come about? I know Alex Morgan was a little bit involved in that.
Yeah, so I did play with Alex Morgan. She was a senior when I was a freshman, and so I kind of knew her a little bit. And when I was graduating, Alex had reached back out to our head coach and asked if any players were looking to go abroad, and she has an agent for us. And I was like, I absolutely want to go abroad, because at the time the NWSL was a bit of a mess. And so this agent came back and he said, I have trials for you in Japan, in Germany, and in France. Like, which one sounds the best? And I was like, well, France. And I went to France.
And how did your football develop in those first years abroad?
My technical skills just got 100 times better. Like in France, it's all technical, like way to pass, first touch, being able to hit different texture styles of balls. Like they just focus so much on the technical side. And yeah, it completely changed me as a player. And I'm actually really grateful to have been there.
How about off the field? Like, how did you feel like that transition was? I mean, Sean and I can attest to obviously learning a language and feeling like a guest in a country when you can't always be involved in the conversations and things like that. So how was that transition, and how did you feel like you adapted as a person off the field?
It was a big test for my character because I was a little bit shy and reserved before I left college. But I said to myself, like, I want to do something different and I want to experience the world. And I kind of just took every challenge head on. And like you said, like not going into a country and not being able to speak the language, you're kind of in like a sink or swim type situation.
Yeah.
So I was really motivated to learn the language. And yeah, I just had to be uncomfortable with being, or I had to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, as they say. Yeah, and you just kind of have to dive headfirst into something like this. I feel like there's no like easy way to do this. You just do it and hope for the best.
And I heard you speak about this career break, and I think it's such an admiring thing and a very interesting thing that I think a lot of players wouldn't do, who should probably do when they're faced in a similar circumstance and feeling maybe that burned out or feeling that lack of love and passion for the game that you have in the past. So I was just hoping you could speak a little bit in detail about kind of the feelings that made you, or that brought you to that decision, and kind of maybe the outside extraneous factors of putting pressure on you maybe to stay in the game and not take that break.
For me, it kind of boiled down to the fact that I hadn't really seen my family for more than like a 1 week, 2 week stretches at a time for like 3 years.
Mhm.
And for me, my family's was like my main support system. And when you don't have that, sometimes you just, I don't know, feel a little lost or empty. And then, what was I going to say? Sorry, I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Happens all the time, don't worry.
Oh yeah, and then when you find yourself like dreading going to practice or wishing or thinking of, oh, how can I get out of this, or am I sick today, maybe I have a little bit of a tweak on my knee, and start making excuses for going to work or going to play, then that's what I knew. I was like, okay, something's not right, and I needed to just do basically like a big reset. And I remember when I told my agent I wanted to leave Sweden early because I technically had another year in my contract. He was like, this is career suicide. Are you sure? It's going to be so tough. Nobody's going to take you if you've been a year off. And I was like, then so be it. Like, I think that my resume at the time can speak for itself. And I had complete confidence that I would be able to make it back if I trained hard enough. And if only I was just given the opportunity, then I knew that a team would take me. So I really had to think like, okay, I'm gonna step away, and I did. And I didn't like check any game scores. I didn't follow any leagues. I unfollowed like all the teams that I followed on Instagram. So I just kind of like got it out of my head, and
Clean break, yeah.
Yeah, I learned to love the sport again just by playing like pickup with some friends every here and there, and training in the gym on my own terms and stuff like that.
And when did you feel that you were ready to get back into the game after this break?
I think probably I was watching some Champions League game. I don't know which one. And I was just sitting there like, oh, I missed that feeling of like stepping out onto the field, and yeah, like I missed the competition aspects, and I just felt like I needed to get back again. I'm not sure if there was really like one moment. It's just like, okay, I'm ready again. Like I feel good in my mental health. I feel stable with my body, and I'm ready to go.
And so when you were coming back in and talking with clubs, contacting clubs, was this part of the conversation? Like, where have you been for the past, months or a year?
Oh yeah. Everyone was like, what were you doing? And I just had to say the truth. I said like, I needed a break. I took a pause for myself. And I needed to step away. I just had to say the truth. I mean, there was really no other way to go about it. And a lot of clubs like did not like that, because, I think a lot of the old school people or coaches or think like, okay, then I'm weak if I'm not able to like overcome things mentally. I don't know, but it was tougher than I thought. I was like panicking for a little bit, but everything ended up working out. And yeah, if I hadn't have stopped, then I don't know if what I would have done, but I would have ended up hating soccer, and that's not what I wanted. So.
And reflecting on the journey right now, what things would you say helped you get to this moment? So in other words, why did Jen make it as a pro, and why is she still going?
I think I made it because I was willing to step out of my comfort zone, and through adverse conditions, I think I made positive decisions on what I needed for myself, and learning when enough was enough and when to say no and when to say yes, and kind of just, I don't know, taking everything I learned throughout my life to get to this moment.